New vehicles to be changed every 4 years for not just you, but also your deputy, and in some instances, your spouse. This is in addition to a payment of 100% of your basic salaries, 300% of your annual basic salary for furniture, free medical services, and even provision for entertainment. This is just the tip of the iceberg that some Nigerian governors will exit office with when they hand over on May 29, 2023. There are also furnished duplexes, armed security, 15 days annual vacation to a destination of their choice for domestic workers who can earn up to 100,000 naira monthly. While the package is expected to be handed to outgoing governors and their deputies differ from state to state, what they have in common is that many are also leaving billions in both domestic and foreign debt, as well as unpaid workers' salaries. Joining me right now, I have Deji Ajare. He's the Executive Director, Sterling Law Center. And we also hope to have Mr. Olanrewaju Suraj, the Chairman of HEDA Resource Center, joining me to look at this. And I believe I do have, okay, I think I'm still with just Mr. Ajare. All right, Mr. Ajare, welcome to Politics HQ. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Tonope. Good evening.
So let's look at this pension conversation because it's not a new thing, pensions for Nigerian governors, but it does seem that the concept has spread much further than just a few years ago. So right now, about 18 outgoing state governors will retire into lives of luxury, even though they have unpaid pensions, unpaid wages to deal with. So they're going to leave with luxury, but leave behind mounting debts and unpaid workers' salaries. So let's start with looking at how these pensions affect the overall budgets of any state. Are they even sustainable? Mr. Ajare, let's start from there.
Hi, Tonope. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, can you come again with the question?
So let's look at the impact of these excessive budgets on, or rather excessive pensions on state budgets, and even the fact that there's a question about their sustainability. Let's start from there.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's a critical issue, of course. We've been talking about it since the return to democracy, since I think 2007. This has been like a major issue for us, and then it crept in gradually. People, a few states did it, and everybody spoke about it, and it's like everybody just went away as usual. And so the governors are emboldened to continue to do this. New governors come, and their predecessors that did it, so why not? And there are the parolees from other states that have done it in the past. I think it is disheartening to see the very individuals who are entrusted with the responsibility of governing, the states, nurturing states to healthy fiscal state, and ensuring that the welfare of the people are prioritized, instead are prioritizing their personal interests.
So this also shows you the criticism that comes about when it comes to state houses of assembly, with the criticism that they're just really rubber stamps for governors to do what they want, because these are actually laws, and we'll get into what some of it represents. But in terms of who's to blame, are we blaming the executive, the governor that accepts these into law that eventually assent? Are we blaming the legislatures that put these laws, these acts together? Or who do we point the fingers at?
I will tell you that it is both the legislature and the executive that ought to be blamed for this fiscal irresponsibility that we have. The problem is that of accountability, because the legislators do this, and there are no consequences from their constituents. I mean, nobody has been recalled for supporting a bill or law of that nature. Nobody has lost an election for supporting a bill or law of that nature. And so, quite naturally, I mean, both parties, and you can be sure, and I'm saying this without the risk of being wrong, that you can be sure that at the end of the day, it's all about mutual interest. You can be sure that there are interests that have been satisfied for these things to fly. So if we're going to delve into the heart of the matter through the passage of these self-serving laws, you will find that the disproportionate salaries and benefits that are received by the governors also apply even to the members of the State Houses of Assembly. Those benefits, those the benefits that they get first from when they come in, the salaries and all those other allowances, which the governors also permit, basically. So they work basically mutually from mutual self-interest. And at the end of the day, it is the state, it is the people, it is the welfare of the people that suffer. And so, if you ask me, those two parties are generally responsible for this fiscal irresponsibility.
All right, so I want to paint a picture with some of the governors that are leaving office. So for Nigeria, top domestic debtors include Delta State, which has about 304.25 billion naira as debt. Rivers has 225.51 billion. Akwa Ibom has 219.27. Then we also have top external debtors, which include Kaduna. That's $573.74 million that the Kaduna governor is leaving. Cross River State has some 209.53 million in external debt, and Enugu has about $120.86 million in external debt. But each of these governors are also expected to walk away with a very heavy package. For example, despite some 225.51 billion naira domestic debt and about $87.13 million in foreign debt, the governor of River State, Nyesom Wike, and his deputy will enjoy very generous benefits after leaving office, as provided in the River State Pensions for Governor and Deputy Governor Law 2012. Now, this provides for new vehicles to be purchased for the former governors and to be changed every 4 years. And of course, we talked about their basic salaries. But this was under former Governor Rotimi Amechi, and these provisions are some of the top two choice houses in any area of their choice in River State and Abuja, and also cars. So there's a history here. It's not to say these governors are simply the ones who've created these pensions for them to walk away with, but many of them met them on ground. So, Mr. Ajare, aren't the states just following the law here? The law that's been enacted when it comes to governors' pensions as well as their deputies in their states?
They are following the lawlessness that they met on ground. And I think that's the best way to describe it. It is lawlessness. It is irresponsibility. And are you telling me that since Nyesom Wike, for instance, came in as governor, there are no laws that he has had to amend? I mean, I am aware that they said some laws of River State have been amended. And so if Wike wants to distinguish himself, or any of the other governors wants to distinguish themselves, what they would do is to amend those laws. What they would do is to refuse to be part of the pilfering of the resources of the people that they were voted in to come and better their welfare. I will tell you the truth of the matter. I do not see a situation where changes will be made by any of the governors or members of the State House of Assembly, because, like I said earlier, it is their self-interest that they are protecting. I mean, why would Wike sit down and refuse such generous gratuities and benefits? I mean, no, for no reason. I mean, there's no reason why he would want to do that. So it is only when the people, citizenry, decide that they need to change these things that it is going to change. And I will tell you why. First, it is the citizens that can go, because I am of the opinion that through advocacy, through litigation, through campaigns and all that, the citizens can get these governors to reverse all of these laws, because they are not in the interest of the people. And for me, it's simple. You need to match the first, the income of the states. For instance, just before I came here now, I saw the news that the Taraba State governor approved the disbursement of the sum of about 2 billion naira for purchase of vehicles for himself and his wife and all whatnot. But for me, it's like shocking, because this is a state with an IGR of less than 10 billion naira, with a debt portfolio of over 100 billion, and that is currently engaged in a war of words with his own anointed governor-elect. He's in a war of words with him over payment of salaries. is currently engaged also in a running battle with the Nigerian Union of Teachers, the state chapter of the Nigerian Union of Teachers, over payments of salaries and promotion of staff that has not been done, of teachers that has not been done since he got in there. So where do you develop the moral temerity to approve 2 billion naira? 2 billion naira, that's a lot for me, for a state of that stature, of that status. And so for me, I think it is simple for citizens to just sit down. Look, based on, I am aware that a lot of these states, for instance, refuse to pay the agreed basic minimum salary, minimum wages. And their reasons, for instance, are usually based on their states, the earnings of the state. And so if they can give that as a reason for not being able to meet up with their responsibilities to their citizens, I think it is also a very good basis to challenge the payment of such huge, ungodly amounts of money to governors for as farewell packages as they leave their offices, especially when one considers that, in fact, what they came to do is not service, but the service. It is the service. Now, this range of benefits does not include pensions, residencies, vehicles, medical expenses, and domestic staff. Now, what is the basis for the payment of all of this? When you look at it,
Mr. Jarrett, we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a moment, because I like where you took me, and I wanted to use another state for example. You've touched a bit on it, but I want our audience to fully understand this. So for Abia State, Governor Ikpeazu, who is leaving behind about 103.2 in domestic debt and about $94 million in foreign debt, is going to get 100% of his salary and official vehicles worth 20 million naira to be replaced every 2 years. A police orderly, 2 operatives of the Department of State Services, 2 policemen for the security of his house, whether he's present or not, as well as allowances for cooks, stewards, driver, and gardener. His deputy will also enjoy similar benefits as well. Now, the incoming governor-elect, Dr. Alex Otti, will face a challenge of repaying some 30 months' salary arrears to workers. And very recently, the Nigeria Labor strike in the state over the huge indebtedness to the workers. So earlier you spoke about citizens, because it seems very, very difficult for many citizens to even be concerned about what their governors are doing or make the connections as to how these pensions and these huge excesses are affecting them within their state. So how do we make the connections? Where is the civil service in this?
Well, the civil service, I think you're not going to get this out from the civil service. I would rather say the civil society organizations, those who have taken it upon themselves to champion causes like this, must also go ahead to sensitize the public, to let them know that the financial burden that is being imposed on their states by these governors, by all these pension laws, and they can be better utilized for developmental projects and social welfare programs, as well as infrastructure development that the governors have failed to do in all the most times 8 years that they have spent. Now, I recall some years ago, there was an organization that would do infographics and tell you, oh, about 2 billion naira is going for this. This is what 2 billion naira can do. It's an easy way to make citizens realize that what this man is taking away is the equivalent of this thing that we could have been enjoying. It is important that civil society organizations come and make this, bring down this sensitization to the people, to get them, to wake them to walk up to their responsibilities, to demand for accountability from these governors. And at the same time, I also say, and I think that's already going to happen very soon, that civil society organizations should also take advantage of public interest litigations to challenge all of these actions. They are illegal, in my opinion. There is no law, there is no way these things can be sustained in the face of the constitutional provisions that we have. There's no way they can be sustained. This misallocation of resources will impede economic growth. Economic growth is one of the primary functions of the governor. So if the steps and actions that you are taking as a governor will impede or make it impossible to achieve the constitutional duties that you are elected for, then I should be able to go to court to challenge your actions. Because at the end of the day, what you will be doing is that you are basically you are basically stalling the well-being and development of the citizens that you have voted to come and take care of.
So I think one thing we see in Nigeria is that elected officials have somehow convinced the citizenry that they work for them. We tend to forget that at the end of it, they're actually civil servants. And yes, they are civil servants who deserve pension at the end of their tenures, at the end of their terms. But what you're saying also means that we need to look at a different sort of metrics, sort of a KPI for Nigerian governors. So if you were to set a KPI that would allow them to walk away with pensions, not particularly these pensions, but would look at the work they're meant to do, what kind of KPIs, what kind of metrics would you set for Nigerian governors? We have 18 going out. And these 18 states are about 3 trillion of Nigeria's debt. So they're going to walk away, but leave the states, the citizens, and the incoming governors holding a bag that is literally empty. So I do anticipate a number of headlines screaming, I met nothing in the Treasury. The Treasury was empty when we came in. We're going to have to do this to find our way back. So what are the KPIs we should be setting for Nigerian governors?
Now, if you ask me, I'll tell you simple. I think the KPIs should really rotate around the economy, essentially, because at the end of the day, it is the economy that essentially generates the funds that you're going to take away as governor. So if you're able to prove through, a specified KPI, say for instance, for me, if you ask me, we should be looking at IGR first, where you took it from and where you brought it to. And it is not enough to have, grown your IGR so much. It must also be from a comparative perspective, like given your expenditure as a state too, on the other hand, and your debt profile, which is very important. The most important thing here is the fact that most of these governors are taking on more and more debt and with very little to show for it. So while you want to look at your IGR, you would also want to look at first, that's the IGR growth, 1. 2, you would want to look at the expenditure of particularly the when you take out, because at the end of the most of the states, when you take out the recurrent expenditure, you will find that, look, what will they expend most of the time, most of the days, are the things that at the end of the day are probably still go back to private pockets. So you want to look at the expenditure, you want to look at the IGR, then you want to look at the debt profile, and then finally you want to compare all of this with the infrastructural development that has been achieved in the state from when the governor came in. KPIs, yes, some sort of metric to weigh and measure their performances in office. But please, let us also not make that mistake of thinking that when they now meet these KPIs, then they are entitled to these ungodly kinds of emoluments or pension gratuities that we're talking about. I still do not think so, because I was speaking earlier to Lope that there are civil servants who worked for 35 years, worked very hard, and devoted their lives to the service of the state or the federation, and in the end, throughout their entire service, and when you add it up with their pensions, they cannot earn what these governors are going to earn in 1 year. And
so that's my final question to you. So that's my final question. So let's go there now in terms of this finally. If we're saying that these pensions are absolutely outrageous, they may be legal, but they're immoral, because what always is legal is not always moral, and what always is immoral is not always legal. What then should governors and their deputies leave office with? What do we think is befitting for our governors, and that is realistic as well when it comes to what their pensions are? Very quickly, in less than a minute because of time.
I said they are unconstitutional. The laws cannot stand in the face of the Constitution. And it is the reason I encourage people that these laws, those laws granting these immoral pensions to governors, are not constitutional and should be challenged, because they impede the ability of the governors to achieve their plans as governors. And so, if you as a governor, for instance, come in as a governor and then you don't stay in your country, in your state, for a whole month, for a whole year, without handing over to somebody, that action is one that can basically be a basis for your removal or impeachment, as the case may be. And so if that is the case, because that what you are doing means you cannot perform your functions as governor. And I am saying, let us relate this too to this fiscal irresponsibility on the part of governors. When you take funds that ordinarily should be deployed into infrastructural development and growth of your state, and you are taking them away for jobs that you did not do, I am telling you that those actions, those laws are illegal. They are unconstitutional, and they can be challenged.
Okay. So Deji, I was trying to get you to tell me what you think is a befitting pension for our governors in the long run. But unfortunately, because of time, we won't be able to get to that. We have a few days left, about a week and a... All right.
I can't say specifically. I cannot tell you what I think is adequate or what is appropriate. But one thing I can tell you is that what they currently have is outrageous, and it should be unacceptable to the citizen. And at the end of the day, what you need, whoever will sit down and make up some figures for the governors to be, of course, you would also agree with me, like you said, when those who have met certain KPIs are set out before they come on board, those ones should be entitled to basic, because we talk about civil servants who spent all of this. So they themselves should not be entitled to much more than that. Nobody is invited to them to come and live a life of luxury.
Yes.
What we just said is to just give you basic support to just continue to live your regular life, and not to come and live an Arab prince's life.
An Arab prince's life. At least it wasn't a Nigerian prince, you said. Deji Ajare, Executive Director of the Sterling Law Center, thank you so much for joining me this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. Good night.